Next up would be Mr. Dave Clark.
Good evening. Let's get going, please. Starting this report, let's look from the biggest picture possible. We here at the high school consider if you have one student who's abusing a substance, then you have a problem. So what I'm going to go through tonight is all the different ways we try to address this issue here at Lemont High School. First and foremost, we are an institution of education, so throughout education, our kids, your kids, my kids, have heard about the dangers of drugs from an early age. They continue on through middle school with some great programs such as the DARE program. We have Tattoo, which is Teens Against Tobacco Use. They talk about other substances. So they're told early on about the dangers of substance abuse. That continues here at the high school. When I was asked to do this report, I asked the teachers for a list, and this is similar to something I gave to this board 5 years ago, a list of classes where some mention of substance abuse is either in the curriculum or they talk about it in the course. I'm not going to read all these to you, but it's from the obvious ones such as health and driver's ed and sociology to some more, not as traditional places you might see it, such as Spanish, where they talk about the effects on Latin culture, or in theater course, tech course, where they talk about the dangers of being under the influence of something and using those kinds of equipment. And I know Roy said he talks about Germany 3 and 4. I don't know where, Roy, but that's awesome that...
It's part of a cultural study, you know, the effects of drug use in Germany, German-speaking countries, and that kind of impact.
So I don't think it's too overstepping. I don't think there's a student in our high school or any high school that's abusing substances because they're not aware they're bad for them. They know they're bad for them, but usually they're trying to fill some other hole or there's some other situation going on that we try to address. So beyond education, there's also an awareness and education of our staff. Myself and the deans, through our different conferences and professional organizations, we're continually updated on latest trends, things to be aware of, and we try and pass that along to the rest of the staff. The next three on that list, the certified alcohol and drug counselor, which I'll talk a little bit more in detail in a little bit, the nurse and our police liaison officer, as part of their recertification, they have to keep up to date on substance abuses and things like that. So that's actually part of their certification. In PPS, we try and bring in as much information as possible in the outside organization so we're aware of what's going on and services that are there to help. And then I try and pass those on, as well as Dr. Flores, to the professional learning team. We do faculty training. 2011 was the last one, we'll probably do it again. We had somebody from the Chicago Police Department come out here. I've already talked to Ms. Burgles, who is our social worker, but she's also our certified alcohol and drug counselor, to get some more information on. Although that information is always helpful, I think we'll see from some other data I'm going to show you that there's an awareness of our staff about what to look for right now, but you can always improve and things always change. And then we have and continue to have articulation with 113A about situations. They talk to us about kids that have been in trouble there and what to look for on their way here. And we talk with them about strategies that we're using that have hopefully been effective. The next part is obviously deterrence. We want to let them know, not just as bad as society, you can't do it here at the high school. If you're making bad choices, which we hope you're not, you can't bring it into the school. The student code of conduct is up there. It's clear. You can't have look-alike drugs or real drugs or sell drugs or be under the influence at the school. That's clearly stated in the handbook, and we review that every year with the handbook review committee. It's also the second bullet point up there. We tell them that it's illegal. I mean, they know that, but also they're going to face consequences of the law, not just of the school. If they're in possession, if they're dealing, they're going to have a legal consequence as well. And it's also throughout the athletic and activities code. Those students not only receive a school consequence, a legal consequence, but they lose some level of participation in their athletics or activities. So the deterrence is there. They should understand they do. When we have those handbook review committees, the students are a part of that. When we talk to them, we say, you guys know what's allowed and not allowed here? They get it. The ones that are choosing not to, like I say, are usually doing it for some other reason. With deterrence and detection, as you are well aware, we do a K-9 search every year heard some things out there that the students kind of figure out once we have one, we're not gonna have another. We can coordinate with the local law enforcement agencies, they're willing to do more, and we're probably going to do more. And we'll keep this board informed of that. So, one of the things that, once again, as we go through, we'll touch on, we've had a lot of what they call hits on things, that's what the dog indicates, and usually haven't found much narcotics. That tends to mean somebody might have been getting high in that vehicle the day before, someone was around it, somebody that morning got high and touched the door handle. The dogs are very highly trained, but they can't guarantee there's going to be something in there. We've had situations, not so crazy, where in faculty and staff, 2 cars that were in the shop the last year, and within a week of that thing, were indicated that obviously nothing was found in there. Detection. This is key. We have an excellent working relationship with the Lemont Police Department. We share information, not just with the police liaison officer, talk to the chief all the time. I've been involved in several information meetings and hearings on drugs in the area, and we go to be a voice from the high school and to hear what's going on, and we talk with him all the time, with other members of the department. The second bullet point up there is the most important thing on everything we do, whether it's safety of the building, safety of our students, or these kind of decisions when they're making bad choices. When the deans, teachers, and other faculty staff members work to build trusting relationships with our students, that's our number one way to deter anything, to find out about anything. When kids are making bad choices, we need other kids being willing to step up and say, so-and-so is doing this, you need to know about it. And that happens. And we're not looking just to a gotcha mentality, we're looking to provide help and services. We'll talk about that in a minute too. The PPS team, the real power. Sometimes we have a meeting every 2 weeks. Sometimes it seems like, oh, we're talking about kids or, failing grades, which is important, but it can be redundant. But the power of the pupil services team at its best is in a situation where a teacher will talk about a student who maybe had been doing well and has dropped off in the last couple of weeks. They'll let the counselor know, hey, have you noticed anything about this student? Is there anything going on? The counselor brings that student up at PPS. The police liaison officer will say, hey, we were at the house 2 nights ago. We arrested the brother for dealing drugs. We'll talk to Chrissy Burgles, our certified alcohol and drug counselor, and say, well, maybe, he was associated too much with his brother. Why don't you talk to this student and see what's going on? And, the deans might be a little heightened in terms of their activity as well to try to prevent it from going to the building. But the first place we talk is to that counselor to say, can we get some help? That's ultimately when pupil services works its best. Something's brought up from a teacher, it's discussed in that group, and then a plan of action is decided upon to help. And then the next one, like I said, as of 2009, we now have a certified alcohol and drug counselor in the building. It is Chrissy Burgles. She started during the 2009-10 school year. Her time has increased from 70 to 79%. To be fair, most of that increase has been spurred by an increase in need in the special education population for social and emotional needs. But with her increased time here, it's also afforded her more time to see some of these kids. And there is a crossover between those two populations. She's seen more students each of the years she's been here. In talking to her and her information she provided me, the trends here in Lemont, mostly marijuana and alcohol usage. There has been some heroin in her few years here. Had an isolated small group of freshman girls involved with puffing at the start of this school year. The police had told us about this. We found out the group they were hanging with. We got those girls out. From all indications, they're not doing that choice anymore. She's talked to them and told them about the dangers, and there's no indication that is still occurring. She, as well as the police, have seen a definite rise in the prescription and non-prescription medication use. One of the tough things about that is it's quite frequently not detectable by the canines. But the students have access, whether it's to somebody in the family who leaves a prescription around, friends who have a prescribed drug for a legitimate medical concern, selling off extra, so that's a major concern nationwide. We've also seen an increase in students entering treatment for substance abuse with underlying mental health issues, anxiety, depression. Each month it seems like we're getting more kids who are going out and getting the help. First goal is to get them healthy. We provide educational services, support to the institutions that they're in, if it's a placement, and then when we get them back, we work real hard to get them back up to school. We've seen an increase in treatment. just some brief data, I'll get some more in a little bit. That's just about the Chrissy Burgles have seen in their time here. So going up each year, I wouldn't indicate that necessarily as an increase in their problem, which it could be. I'd see it more the increase in trust. When she talks to groups, she talks to the groups about, do you know any other kids that might benefit from this? They'll recommend if it comes to it. So in building those trusting relationships I talked about, now more kids are comfortable talking to her, and hopefully they get the real information on things and some real solutions. Spoke not just the police liaison officer, I talked to Officer Dyson, who's been in the building and he's now back on the street, and one of the other officers came and said, what are you seeing? What's going on out there? And they also have seen an increase in the prescription and non-prescription medication use. Ever since, it's been in the last 10 years, about 8 years ago, I believe, in Lemont, in this area, marijuana went from an arrest to a citation. He said ever since that time, they write about the same number of citations every year. There's not been an up or a down. They write about the same, that's from the adult population through the teen. They do anticipate a flood of secondary market marijuana due to the medical marijuana laws. When people start to get their prescriptions filled, not everyone, but those that we're getting, there's such a large amount that you're able to obtain. There's a belief among the police department that people who want to subsidize the cost of that will take what they need and sell the excess. So statewide, there's probably a strong possibility of a secondary market coming about. Their heroin, cocaine, and other heavy narcotic arrests, they spike up and down. Depends on if somebody's trying to set up shop in the neighborhood. They still believe most of it is a highway effect. They'll jump on 55 and head into Cicero and those areas and bring it back. Not to say that there's not small-time dealers here. They don't believe that there's a large, most of that is a trafficking that way. And then this is something we've always believed, and it's not something we're trying to sell, so to speak, but they say that most of the times they arrest students and talk to them, most of the sales occur outside of the school. That would be consistent with the lack of finding things in canine searches, and then some other data I'm going to show you in just a minute. It's one of the, I love being a neighborhood school. I love the fact that we're tied to downtown Lemont. I don't even know if this is a negative. The negative is that they're doing the drugs. They're usually choosing to do them in a house nearby or somebody's place because they know they've kind of got extra penalties here. You know, we're gonna get in trouble with the law and we're gonna get in trouble with school. You know, and if they're 18, we'll contact the parents, but they might not pick up. The law enforcement, we will contact the parents. The law enforcement won't contact the parents. So there's a lot more at stake for getting caught in the school than there is in the neighborhood. And they tend to believe, I think, that trying to the police are not looking to, you know, break in on 3 kids getting high in the basement. They've kind of got other issues to be dealing with. So we're not seeing the arrests in the building. The police aren't seeing the kids when they arrest them and find out, is there dealing going on in the school? Is there public exchanges? I would believe so, but they say mostly it's happening outside of school. Kind of small here, but our total number of drug offenses in the last 3 years going to this one, 2010, 2011, we had 4 instances and 4 instances, 1 was in possession and 2 had paraphernalia. 2 of those took advantage. Remember, your first time you're suspended or found to be under the influence or possession of an illegal substance, we offer an opportunity to come back to school sooner if you go through an assessment and you follow the advice of that assessment, the program, and then your suspension is kind of put in abeyance until you complete that, and then you don't have to serve that. Because the goal is to give them help first, and then so they don't miss as much school as possible. One thing about that 2010-2011 school year, I'm not nearly suggesting there's any silver linings, but that's the year, the numbers low, that's the year right at the first full school year after we had the death of the student from the heroin overdose. So I believe a ripple effect occurred within the student body of this stuff's pretty serious, so I don't think we saw as much. You see a spike the next year, and nobody's happy about that number. You can explain it. It's 24 incidents, 0 possession, 6 in possession of paraphernalia, and 18 chose the 3-day option. You might recall we had 8 young men, mostly athletes, make a decision in the early morning in the garage and decide, even though they had some involvement with the police that morning, they decided to still come to school. The police, of course, notified them within first period. They were all sitting in the dean's office, and we dealt with that. So there's a little spike because of that 8-student situation. 11 last year with 0 having possession, 2 of paraphernalia, and 7 took the option of the 3 days. And in the first semester of this year, 4 with 0 in possession, 1 paraphernalia, and 2 taking the option to get the assessment. Recently though, and almost ironically, right after it was asked to present this to the board, we had a little rash of some things going on, and I don't know if it was cabin fever or what, but we had 5 student issues in second semester. Now these next bullet points are spread out over those 5 students. 2 with possession of non-prescription pills, 1 in possession of a narcotic, 1 in possession of cannabis, and 1 delivery of an illegal substance. 2 were under the influence of that illegal substance. So among those 5 students, there was that combination. We're going to be talking about some of these individual students in closed session. In all of these situations, there was early detection by fact staff. 1 young man came in the door reeking of cannabis. By the time 8:05 occurred, by the time the announcements were done, the campus supervisor, the teacher, and the teacher's aide had all notified the deans that a young man was brought out of class. First seeing the nurse to check on how he's doing, and then also the social worker was brought in, and the school guidance counselor to make sure they process everything properly, and then he received consequences from the dean because he made a really, really bad choice. When I talk to these kids, they're not only disrupting the educational environment, they're creating a dangerous situation. And the examples are countless, but we don't know if that person has wood shop, and they're out there using a bandsaw. The idea of somebody being under the influence not only endangers them, but endangers the person who's standing next to them. From being the person who is holding the rope when they do the rock climbing to being in the chemistry lab. Time and time again, we can all come up with countless scenarios where if a student is impaired, they're putting themselves and others in danger. Each of these incidences, within first period and 1 in second period, that was 2 of the young ladies who were on the non-prescription, were discovered in the first or second period. So our teachers are out there looking at what's going on. They're noticing if kids are not acting normally, and then they're notifying the deans. And then, like I said, it's a little cut off there, I apologize that. The parents are notified, and treatment options are provided. We tell them resources in the area that they can access that kind of account for all levels of insurance and things of that nature. Going forward, obviously our teachers will maintain a curricular focus. There's in some courses where it's required, but it's a good connecting to their lives kind of example in many of our classes. We will have increased training of fact staff and ongoing, build even more relationship with area treatment facilities. Frequently they come into PPS meetings and talk to us about what's going on and what they have to offer so that we know what's available for our families. We'll continue our cooperation with the Lemont Police Department. The PPS team will continue to filter that information out. We will work with 113A, probably increase canine searches, and continue the referrals for treatment. A lot of information, short period of time. Any questions right now? Anything else you'd like me to follow up on? And obviously, if you don't have it right now, you can let me know another time.
How are the incidents in 113A?
We don't get their numbers per se. It's usually kids with marijuana there. They get some tobacco use, but when they talk to us it's usually at the end of the school year about the 8th graders coming over. They tell us those that have had issues with drug problems, all kinds of issues. So we bring those students in ahead of time, and we don't say, "Hey, you were identified as this." We bring them in just to try and acclimate them to the high school.
David, there were a lot of, I forget which slide it was, there were a lot of an increased incidence or increased number of cases for treatment programs. Your opinion is that because, and I think you kind of answered it, it's not a higher incidence per se, we're just better at discovering it and referring kids to
That's another, Chrissy Burgos is the alcohol and drug counselor. She's seen more, I think a lot of it is because of the trust, the fact that she is here more hours. The other slide that kind of talked about, she felt like there was more kids being sent into treatment. I think that there's a greater understanding that it's usually, and I'm speaking, but it's usually tied to some mental health issues. It's not just I'm choosing to do drugs. There's that reason. So I think families are getting, okay, I'm not going to just worry about, take all the, search my kid every day for drugs. Why is he or she doing it? So they're getting that kind of help. No, but I think Chrissy's numbers, remember, she has to, those are her numbers, she has to report to the state, those numbers. And she said, those are the kids that talk either individually or groups with it. Some of it could be, yeah, I'm getting a lot of pressure from my friends, and she tries to help them, give them strategies to deal with that. And some of them are hardcore, and have a lot of problems, that have been in and out of treatment.
Dave, thank you. I appreciate the presentation because when parents ask me or any other board members, in the grocery store, on the street, whatever, at least we know what to respond.
Well, as always, they can have them call and talk and say, what are you doing, different things we're doing, It's, nobody's suggesting this. It's not advantageous for us to ever ignore it or try to say it's not there. Like I said, if we have one kid making that choice, we've got a problem, and we're going to try and figure out ways to solve that problem. So the communication all around, even from parents, is the key for us to know about it. And nobody's in a gotcha mode. It's, yeah, we want to, kids that are making the real bad choices, we might talk about some of those in closed session. We want to make sure that they're not impacting other students, absolutely. But other than that, it's not, we're excited when we have a canine search and nothing comes up. That's a successful canine search in our mind.
Thank you.
One other thing that wasn't on the agenda, but I know I was asked, and you can ask questions about, you're looking at some security and safety measures of what the numbers were at the door, and I'll put this, it's probably more of a table than we needed, but I'm going through some Excel training. So I created a nice little bar graph for you so you can see what to expect in the future. This is a week in February, remember. It wasn't the worst weather week we've had. It was kind of, but I talked to the campus supervisors at the door, and they say it was a little down from average. So, say on average the numbers are a little higher than this. The blue bar is at the front main entrance, and the gold bar is at the PAC entrance. And you can see we average about 31.75 visitors up front and only about 10.5 in back. And they said that it wasn't too far off of what they considered to be normal. So we can do it again in a week when you think might be busier, or we can just, whatever you need.
What do you attribute Friday on Valentine's Day to the higher attendance for parents dropping off chocolate for their kids?
That's it. Friday's, but Friday's also a big athletic day, and kids tend to forget a lot of athletic equipment and things. So Fridays in general,
I got a couple of those.
Fridays in general are busier. I know some of the options you're looking for, one thing that, there'd be a lot of benefits in some of the things you're looking for that easy drop-off thing, because right now those parents have to go into the first station and into the office. So.
Thank you.
No problem, thank you.
Next up is assistant principal for extracurricular activities, Mr. John Young.
Good evening. First of all, I want to start out by introducing a couple of guests here this evening. We have two Lemont alumni that are shadowing me tonight. They're both students at North Central College, and they're in sports management. And that's Eric Gruber and Kyle Molinovich. So they have gotten an early start. We had a sophomore game. We started about a half hour late because our opponent had some bus troubles. And then we couldn't get the microphone to work as well. So they saw the profession in action tonight, but everything worked out and things up and running. So it's good for them, and we appreciate having them back. So from that standpoint of my February report, or basically 3 areas I wanted to cover, I'll start out by talking about the Lemont Athletic Hall of Fame. Believe it or not, we'll be celebrating our 10th anniversary next fall. This is an endeavor that Dr. Prendergast and I discussed when I first started. It took many years to get off the ground, but once we got it going, it definitely has some momentum. And so we'll be celebrating our 10th anniversary. We'll have 3 new inductees. Doug Freehoff, Susie Wistrocki, and Val Rydberg will all be joining Hall of Fame in 2014. We hope to make it a special weekend. We're going to incorporate a golf outing on that Saturday, and there'll be additional details that you'll be receiving in the mail here very shortly as we move forward with our efforts. We'll have, hopefully put a fan bus for our alums to go to Oak Forest on the Friday night before, so the weekend's kind of lining up that way. It should be full, and we should have a lot of fun. And our committee is working very hard to make that a very successful and a memorable 10th anniversary. I also wanted to highlight this month our Lemont High School Athletic Council. It's a group of about 24 to 26 students each year, made up of juniors and seniors that are typically athletes that represent either leadership roles in their respective sports teams or are actually designated captains. And this group does a nice job of trying to link our efforts with our feeder schools. We reach out to a visit to Old Quarry each year. We also showcase them as ambassadors on nights such as the open house and the trade open house, so that we can at least allow them another leadership opportunity for our future students to get to know them and the interaction. Our next visit will be Wednesday, February 26th. We'll have 2 visits that day at Old Quarry. Mr. Kennedy at Old Quarry hosts us organization. We're excited to do that again. They've been involved in some other events here on campus. I think we're hoping to partner with NHS for some activities this spring. As far as our winter sports and activities, obviously we have a night, this night designated to recognize our dance squad. Done an outstanding job. Next month you'll be able to honor our cheerleading team, our state champions, some wrestling qualifiers for state, some of our speech qualifiers for state. Both wrestling and speech had individual qualifiers, and our girls bowling team will some qualified for state again. So we'll be excited about those recognitions next month. At the end of the month, I believe you will be serving behind the concession stand on February 28th when we celebrate senior night. And if you haven't been delivered that message, I believe that Mr. Cards is going to send you that message. So,
Behind the concession stand?
Yes.
We'll make that a special night.
Pizza?
Absolutely, popcorn and pizza. We'll make that a special night where we honor seniors for boys basketball, cheerleading, and dance. And we're excited about that. Our rebels will be our opponent. I also wanted to highlight the fact that Lemont High School was able to showcase a wonderful youth basketball tournament with the St. Cyril's organization putting on a quality program on several nights during the week last week, with being capped on Saturday. The tournament had a great atmosphere, incorporated our Sparkles performance on one night, and it also involved our guy-girl dance. So I know there's a lot of energy and excitement from that particular evening. We're thankful for St. Cyril's and partnering, particularly with Beverly in that effort. It was a very good reflection of the community in general.
Well, thank you very much, because you guys are a great host. You really are. And I have to give credit to Old Quarry, especially their cheerleading coach, because they have a wonderful squad, and St. Cyril's has 4 little 5th graders get out there and try to do something. And she saw that, and she took those girls, and they learned a combined cheer so that they could go out on the floor together. And I thought that was great. But, yeah, the halftime entertainment was spectacular.
Hey, John, I have a question about that. Now, who was the MVP of that tournament?
Yeah.
Easton Talley.
Yes.
Who was Easton Talent related to?
He's on our recruiting radar.
Right.
Big plans for you.
Congratulations, Easton Talent.
I also don't want to steal Roy's thunder, but we had our winter play, Seasons of Love, which Roy will be talking about. And Roy's not just busy with the play, but just the whole cooperation part of it. We're working to stage a home basketball game and a play on one night for the high school, and then a youth basketball game and a play the following night. The organization seemed to be seamless, and that's a tribute to Will and his planning efforts, and it's just a great collaboration, opportunity to represent Lemont in a variety of first-class manners. So, that completes my report, unless you have any questions. If not, I'm going to excuse myself momentarily to go back and supervise the basketball game, and we'll be back and call the vote. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thanks, Jack.
I believe we are moving on to public comment. Again, in accordance with board policy, we welcome comments from the public at this time, but ask that each individual keep his or her comments to 5 minutes or less. Additionally, please do not repeat or reiterate comments made by others about the same topic. We ask that any person who wishes to make a public comment, please begin by introducing yourself, spelling your name for the recording secretary, and giving your address.
Good evening, my name is Laura Regal, I live on Island Line. As many people have been talking to me from the community regarding any concerns that have had the Tucson Board of Education, I'm here to request that the Board of Education place on its agenda for the next regularly scheduled board meeting a discussion of the bond and interest fund surplus, a surplus now totaling $1.9 million. In addition to the discussion, a vote on a tax abatement as a means to reduce the surplus. The purpose of this request is to enable me, as well as all the taxpayers in the community, to hear the opinions of each of the individual board members regarding the return of the excess debt service taxes, and to know how they stand on the issue of the abatement by the votes that they will pass. A discussion would, of course, require some fundamental understanding of all the issues involved, including the size of the surplus by each bond fund, when and how to which individual debt service funds the surplus accumulated,